Hey folks, this is Emily with American Resiliency. I've got something I'm really excited to share with you today. As we are all experiencing, this is a pretty crazy time. I think a lot of us want to build our household resilience against economic stress, if nothing else. My resilient prep lifestyle has helped me feel more confident about my family's food security through previous rounds of food inflation. I think many of us feel concerns on that front and want to get closer to a 3 month level of resilient prep. In just a minute, you're going to meet Elle, a disaster resilience professional who has done incredible work to produce and pilot a workshop with the AR community based on the 3 bad days, 3 bad weeks, and 3 bad months method I outlined in the popular What is Reasonable Prep video. If you've been looking for more structure for your prep, or if you're looking to talk about reasonable disaster preparedness with your community in a way that is positive and could help bring people together, thanks to Elle, we've got what we need. Before we get going, let me show you the resources. So you're going to want to go to the website, www.americanresiliency.org, and click on the resources tab on the top bar. Then you're going to scroll yourself all the way down to the bottom where you can see the Bunker Not Required workshop for community and household prep. Right there, we've got a folder to a Google Drive link. That'll take you right here to where you can download the presentation, the worksheets, a facilitator guide, and the student handbook. I love the worksheets. They do a lot to divide out areas of preparedness, including some that you might not have considered, into manageable questions and chunks. And check it out. There are a lot of tabs that are really cool to explore all along the bottom of this Excel book that you can download for free. If you're interested in using these materials, they are appropriate to fulfill granting requirements for state or county level resilience workshops because they include assessment materials. This is a professionally designed, high quality workshop that would usually be behind a paywall. Elle has produced this for the AR community to help us get ready. Don't charge for the workshop if you give it for anything other than your time. That would be operating in bad faith. Only thing Elle has asked for is feedback and to hear if these materials are making an impact on the ground. So if you use this yourself or with your community, please share your story. However you feel comfortable, you can email me, you can get me through the contact form on the website. Always love to hear from you on YouTube too. Now I'm going to talk with Elle for a few minutes. And after we chat for a bit, Elle has recorded a webinar version of the workshop that's at the next stage of this video. I want to give a big thank you to Elle for this tremendous act of service and to all the folks in the AR community who volunteered to participate in the pilot workshops. What we're presenting in this video is something that I believe is deeply valuable. I hope you download the worksheets for yourself at a minimum and look them over while we chat here. Let's get rolling. Hey folks, this is Dr. Emily Scherning with American Resiliency, and I am here with Elle, the person who sent me the email that made me the most excited in like the last 3 or 4 months. Elle, can you introduce yourself to the community, please?
Yeah, hi. My name's Elle Seeley. I work for my state health department in a rectangular state. I'm part of their Office of Emergency Preparedness and Response, and I'm a training and exercise specialist within that department. So, what that means is that I train different agencies around the state about our statewide protocols for large scale emergencies that require multiple counties and multiple jurisdictions to collaborate together to get through a disaster. But this training is not focused on that big picture stuff at all. The training that I've developed or the workshop that I've developed is more geared towards helping communities and households and individuals be better prepared for emergencies.
When I first saw your drafts of these workshop materials, which for anyone who's looked at the What is Resilient Prep videos on the channel, it's like Elle took those videos, blocked them up into a totally actionable breakdown, made it so much easier to build resilience the way a community resilience and disaster preparedness expert would. So I feel like the work Elle has done here is going to be of huge interest to anyone who enjoyed the Resilient Prep 333 method.
Yeah, and that's like heavily what I've based it off of is your videos. And then I also based it off of another training that I got as part of my workplace, called How to Prepare for Everything, which was a really great training. It gave me a lot of ideas for how to format like student worksheets. And that's kind of the highlight of this workshop.
So here we're looking at this worksheet that Elle blocked out, where you see what may be the familiar 3 bad days, 3 bad weeks, 3 bad months setup, but with really specific questions about access to resources and problems that humans have, and the skills and the stuff that you might need for each of these time points. I think this is so helpful for those of us who want to get organized, Al.
Yeah, and so kind of how I've broken this down, like Dr. Emily said, is into this skills and stuff category. So when I am giving the workshop, I let people know that the skills for your 3 bad days might not really be anything that you have to write down. For example, if your backup plan is for power, I do not expect people to write down being able to turn on a flashlight as their skill. But definitely, as you get into the 3 bad months, it can be helpful to think about the skills that you would need to really make those more, I guess, beefy resources helpful to you. I think that a trap that a lot of us can fall into when we're preparing is focusing on buying that stuff and not really thinking about how it's going to feel to be setting up a camp stove for the first time after your power has been out for like 4 days.
And I just want to highlight for a moment one of these sections that I really appreciated, where I often think about these transportation and navigation issues with preparedness, but I hadn't done anything to block that out in the videos other than say, have a map. Elle, I feel like these questions are so important to consider and that it's very valuable to have this space to consider them.
The idea behind this worksheet is that there's really no one plan. Your plan is going to be different for every single household. Right now, I'm at a stage where I've done a few pilots of this workshop. That was something that was really helpful to me because it really helped highlight the parts of my training that needed to be fleshed out more, and gave me a lot of really great feedback on how to kind of build out, especially the 3 months portion of it. So in the workshop, we have a lot of time allocated for like discussion and starting to fill out your worksheet. And 3 months is kind of the last hunk that we get to. And so sometimes we were really running out of time, but the 3 months portion is really where the discussion portion is, in my opinion, the most necessary because in that 3 month time frame, you're thinking about how you can collaborate with people that have different skill sets. I would also say that that was one of the challenges of the pilot is that this workshop, it can definitely be done for people who are spread out geographically, but especially that 3 month planning piece is strongest if you can do this workshop with people that are in your same like geographic area or your same like physical neighborhood community.
So I think this is another great connection to the ground launch, where our resilience leaders on the ground, if you want to do a workshop that'll let you talk about 3 month level of preparedness in a structured way, Ella's got our back. I think we posted 2 times, once on the Discord and once public facing on the channel, and you got 30 volunteers. I am sure that there are many hundreds of us who would love an opportunity to take a workshop like this, whether online or preferably in person, as we're building practical resilience in our communities.
Yeah, and that was definitely a really, really cool part of doing the pilots as well, is that at the end of it, some people had said like, "Oh, I would actually love to do this workshop with like my community."
That community building segment, it is a lot easier to respond to a disaster with someone that you have a friendly relationship with. And communities aren't built on fear, they're built on joy. I think that these kind of tools help us to structure ways to move forward for our community. We need that positivity to take action. All right, crew, it's workshop time. If you haven't yet, hit pause and get your worksheets downloaded. Remember, they're in the resource tab at the bottom of the resource page at www.americanresiliency.org. I'm going to let Elle take this from here.
So before we dive in, I want to make a few notes on the differences between this webinar and the workshop version for the Bunker Not Required workshop. So in the workshop version, there's a lot of time allocated to discussion questions and group conversations. If you're following along with the student handbook, you'll be able to see those discussion questions, and I encourage everyone watching this to use the comments and your student handbook as a way to have time to reflect and share your thoughts in written form. In the full workshop version, there's also a slide where we discuss the relationship between the need for greater resilience and climate change. I've left this out just because the AR channel has so much in-depth knowledge about climate change, so I know that this audience is already familiar with those concepts, and I wanted to keep this webinar as concise as possible. The final difference is that in the workshop version, I incorporate some humorous videos and pop culture references, which are left out of this video for copyright and monetization purposes. If you want to see that content, you can find it in the Google Drive folder for this workshop in the slide deck. I also want to let people know who are interested in hosting this workshop as part of professional grant deliverables that the full workshop version of this presentation meets the requirements of an HSEEP workshop. If you need to complete an HSEEP discussion-based exercise for your organization's grant deliverables, this content is set up well for you to have those types of deliverables. So the deliverables in that to share folder include a pre and post test, a student survey, sign-in sheets, and of course the planning worksheets themselves, once they're filled out, would be a deliverable as well. So with that, let's jump in. So our learning objectives for today are 5 things. So first, we want to understand what it means to have a healthy relationship with emergency preparedness. We want to understand how to prepare with an all hazards approach. We want you to understand your role in preparedness as an individual, as a household member, and as a community member. We want to understand how emergency or disaster timeframes will affect your preparedness. And then we want to begin your emergency preparedness planning process. So first, it's important to make the distinction between emergencies and disasters because that's going to affect our preparedness and the types of time frames that we are preparing for. So emergencies meet the following criteria. They are routine or common events with a short duration. Resources are available from professionals without significant delays or shortages. Emergencies do not overwhelm systems like emergency medical services, hospitals, or other first responders, and they can also include personal emergencies like theft, injury, or deaths in the family. Disasters, on the other hand, meet the following criteria. They are less common than emergencies and are greater in scale. During a disaster response, there are not enough resources locally, and they may overwhelm systems. Disasters also have a longer duration than emergencies and have a longer recovery time. An emergency is different than a disaster, and the plans we will talk about in this workshop will be applicable to both emergencies and disasters. An important distinction is that disasters strain resources and often increase the amount of time that individuals may need to wait for vital resources like medical care, clean water, etc. Our planning process will help you be better prepared for these types of resource gaps. However, it will also help you prepare for smaller emergencies and non-emergency situations like a household member becoming ill or a medical record being lost. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the differences between healthy preparation and resilience and unhealthy preparation. So, healthy preparation can make us feel more safe and secure. It should not induce anxiety, and it can also help us feel more connected to our community and household members as we learn more about their individual needs and start planning for them. It can also transform your habits and lifestyle in positive ways, and it focuses holistically on resources as well as the skills that you need to use those resources. So, an example of healthy preparation might be having a well stocked pantry with a variety of shelf stable foods. Your family regularly uses all of the foods in this pantry, and you're mindful of using items with the soonest expiration date first. You also know that there are some foods which could be prepared without your oven, and there are some foods that could be prepared without adding water. With these supplies and skills, you know you will be okay if you can't go to the grocery store for several weeks, and you know that your family will still be able to have warm, familiar, home cooked food even if your oven breaks or the power goes out. Unhealthy preparation, on the other hand, makes us feel more isolated as we begin to prepare. It can also include extremes, like feeling very paranoid or feeling invincible. It disconnects you from your community and focuses on preparing for niche, unrealistic, or end of the world type scenarios. And it can also include focusing on conspiracies. Finally, unhealthy preparation can make us feel insecure without specific stuff, but doesn't necessarily focus on building up our skills to use the resources that we're gathering and the resources themselves. So, an example of unhealthy preparation might look like this: somebody who is worried about the next pandemic and they spend a lot of time thinking about potential ways that it might happen. In their basement, they have a large stockpile of medical supplies and surgical gowns. They have a hazmat suit and as many over the counter medications that they can buy in large stockpiles. Often, these medical supplies expire before they can use them. And when they get stressed about a new scenario that they've come up with, they cope by purchasing additional over the counter medications. They feel distressed until they get their package or the resources that they're trying to buy to feel better. And they hope that eventually that stockpile is going to help them and their family feel more secure. But this isn't happening, and buying supplies does not seem to help. So I hope that you can see illustrated in those two examples what kind of holistic and healthy preparation looks like versus this unhealthy preparation, which is what we want to be mindful of. So as you're going through this planning process, be sure to check in with yourself, and we'll just approach this in a way that is sort of grounded in thinking about the natural hazards in our area and realistic scenarios, as well as building up our resources and skills at the same time. Now we're going to cover what it means to have an all hazards approach to preparedness. This workshop focuses on building resilience with an all hazards approach. It can be tempting to try and plan for scenarios and prepare by purchasing supplies and gear, but this type of planning can easily leave out important supplies, and it also does not develop our ability to use those supplies and gear in an emergency. All hazards planning avoids these pitfalls. Instead of focusing on specific emergency scenarios, we're going to create backup plans for all of the vital resources that humans need to maintain health and safety in emergencies or in other times of rapid change or instability. All hazard planning also focuses on developing capacities. In other words, the skills that you have and capabilities. In other words, the stuff that you have. Planning for both skills and stuff ensures that we have holistic, healthy resilience. Some aspects of planning will be specific to your area. For example, planning for safety and security includes for planning to secure your home against wind, water, fire, or smoke. If you live in an area that does not experience flooding but does experience wildfires, it's not practical to focus on plans for securing your home against flooding. Another example would be in our transportation category. So, somebody who lives in a flood zone may need to include a raft as part of their emergency transportation plans, whereas someone living on high ground does not need to. So, those are the types of things that we're going to think about while we start our planning process. Making backup plans for the different areas of vital needs that all humans need to survive, and also thinking about those natural hazards in your area, which can help you prioritize the types of resources and skills that you need to build. So with that, we're going to review these 12 areas of preparedness that we're going to think about in our all hazards planning. So we have shelter, clothing, and fire. So basically ways to regulate your body temperature. We have clean water, safe food, hygiene and sanitation, light and power, first aid, communication, safety and security, tools and personal items, cooking, important documents and money, and finally, transportation and navigation. In these next few slides, we're going to talk about the people that need to be involved for different time frames of emergencies, disasters, or resource disruptions. So we all prepare for emergencies. In America, our government prepares for emergencies for us. Firefighters, emergency medical services, police, and public health organizations all prepare for emergencies on our behalf. However, there are limitations to those resources. For example, living in a rural area may mean that you have to wait longer for an ambulance. In large disasters like hurricanes, it may be difficult for emergency services to find the people who need help, and communities may deal with infrastructure damage for long periods of time. Preparing your household and community for emergencies means that you are more likely to make it through those situations safely. Each level of preparedness can help us be resilient to different time frames of disasters. As an emergency, disaster, or other disruption stretches into weeks or months, we will need more teamwork from people in our community and household to ensure that we have all the skills and supplies to be safe. In this workshop, we will use an all hazards approach to plan for 3 emergency timeframes: 3 bad days, 3 bad weeks, and 3 bad months. When you are preparing for 3 bad days, you should focus on creating a temporary backup plan for all your most vital needs. You will likely only need one person, yourself, to have the necessary skills and stuff to be safe in a 3 bad day scenario. When you're preparing for 3 bad weeks, you will focus on more substantial backup plans for vital needs, as well as planning for your comfort and emotional resilience. These 3-week plans will likely involve teamwork from household members or potentially neighbors. When you plan for 3 bad months, you will need to focus on holistic lifestyle shifts. This will be a gradual process of increasing your skills, supplies, and increasing your social connections and relationships within your community. It is impossible for one person to have all of the skills and stuff necessary for a 3 bad month scenario, which is why 3-month planning will likely involve your community members pooling skills and resources to be safe. In short, holistic resilience will require more people and more teamwork for longer periods of difficulty and disruption. First, we're going to talk about planning for our 3 bad days scenario, which is acute emergencies. Acute emergencies are minor disruptions that last 3 days or less. You have probably been through many of these emergencies already. Some examples can include brief power outages, acute weather events like severe thunderstorms that do not significantly damage infrastructure and do not require extensive cleanup, or brief infrastructure disruptions like water pressure loss. Acute emergencies can also include evacuations. So, if you live in an area where evacuations are common, consider creating a go bag or evacuation checklist so that you can speed up the process of packing and leaving your home. Preparedness for 3 day scenarios doesn't need to be perfect, and for most people, will not require many additional purchases. The most important thing for a 3 day plan is to have a simple, temporary backup plan for vital resources. When you are creating your plan, you can start by considering the types of short term emergencies you are most likely to experience. For example, if you live in an area that experiences high winds, which frequently cause power outages, you may want to plan for your light and power backup plans first. Give yourself permission to be imperfect with your 3 day plan. Any amount of planning is better than none, and you will flesh out your preparedness plans, skills, and supplies with time. So now I'm going to invite all of the students to give this video a pause and go to your student workbook. We're going to be preparing some backup plans for those 3 bad days first. So I invite you to choose one of those categories of preparedness just to get yourself started. There's also a sample plan in the second page of the student workbook, and I have that pulled up here. So you can see that this person is planning for their backup plans for light and power, and you can see that for those 3 bad days scenarios, the skills and the stuff are pretty simple. They have flashlights and candles as their backup for light, and the skills that they have written down is just that their children know not to use matches alone. So I will also say that probably a lot of the skills that you need for the 3 bad days scenario are things that are pretty easy, come pretty easily to you as adult humans. But if you have family members that are very young or have special needs for accessibility, you might want to consider putting that in the skills column. But if you just sort of know these things, you do not have to write down like light a candle as a skill. So just so you know, this is really meant to be a flexible planning sheet for you and your family's needs. So feel free to make these plans as detailed or as simple as you want. 3 week emergencies are more significant disruptions or disasters. You may have experienced this type of emergency before. Some examples can include extended weather events like blizzards or flooding that impede travel for a week or more. It can include damage to critical infrastructure that takes longer than a week to repair. It can also include extreme temperatures like polar vortex or heat waves, or serious communicable disease outbreaks. 3 week scenarios typically mean that you will hunker down in your household and lay low until the emergency has passed and cleanup and infrastructure repairs are complete. Consider that sometimes multiple disruptions will happen at once. For example, a blizzard may prevent you from being able to drive anywhere and could cause a simultaneous power outage. Preparedness for 3 week timeframes includes lifestyle shifts, skills, and purchasing additional resources to have in stock. For anything perishable, you will want to get in the practice of stocking items and rotating them out before they expire. Remember that medical supplies, medications, and first aid supplies sometimes have expiration dates. Some fuel has expirations as well, so be mindful of this if you have a generator as part of your preparedness plan. One tool you can use for managing items with expiration dates is keeping an inventory spreadsheet. The Excel book for this workshop has an optional inventory spreadsheet if you think this would be helpful for you, but it's really optional. So if you don't feel like you need that, feel free to ignore it. For non-perishable supplies like camp stoves, solar radios, or charging stations, you'll want to regularly practice using them so that when an emergency situation comes along, you are confident with how to use those tools. Remember that skills and stuff always come hand in hand. For 3-week scenarios, you will probably need to rethink some storage. For example, it is not practical to have 30 gallons of water per person, but you can identify a water source and have a plan for sanitizing your own water for scenarios where your running water is unavailable or unsafe. Remember, 3-week scenarios will also require emotional resilience. So things like having familiar foods and well-practiced skills allows us to focus on safety and survival during longer emergencies instead of stressing about how to learn how to cook on a fire or learning how to use a water filtration system for the first time. You may also want to think about items that will bring you or your family members comfort, like games or books. In our modern world, sometimes skills like reading and playing physical games get replaced with activities that require electricity and an internet connection. Building your 3-week plan should also include coming up with ways to relax, even if there are infrastructure disruptions. So we can see in this example, again, this is the same person planning for light and power. Their 3 weeks are a little bit more fleshed out with both their resources and the skills that accompany those resources. So in addition to flashlights and candles, they also have a backup generator for lights. And then their skills are including, again, that the kids know not to use matches alone, and also that adults are comfortable using that generator. So I'm going to invite you again to give this video a pause and start working on your 3-week plan. So you can fill out as much or as little as you want to right now. Again, this webinar is meant to be a pretty flexible format. So if you want to give the video a pause, go ahead and do that. And after this, we will talk about our 3 bad months scenario. In 3 bad months, we're going to want to see community transformation and resilience, because this is going to require teamwork from whole groups of people to be as safe and secure as possible. 3-month emergencies are marked by significant disruptions in critical infrastructure, resource shortages, or disasters that require extended recovery periods. A recent example of a long-term emergency was the COVID-19 pandemic, which caused supply chain issues and global healthcare shortages for months on end. Another example of a 3-month disruption was the power outage in the aftermath of Hurricane Maria, which caused power outages for over 100 days. Preparation for this requires more robust supplies and requires whole communities to work together. Teamwork and connecting to our neighbors is an important aspect of this type of preparation. It is nearly impossible for one individual to have every single skill required for a 3-month emergency. Resilient communities are able to work towards a common goal of survival as a team, so building relationships with your community before disaster strikes is an important step. Consider these questions for your 3-month preparedness. Think about, who are your neighbors? Do you trust each other? Does anyone in your community have special needs? Who has what skills? How can you support each other in the event of a long-term disruption? And what specific skills and supplies can you provide for your community? When you're thinking about supplies for this level of disruption, you will want to stock larger quantities of food, have sustainable plans for a water source and purification, and have a more extensive first aid kit and medical supplies. As you fill out your planning sheet, you will likely find that the supplies needed for 3 weeks and 3 months have some overlap. The biggest difference between 3 months and 3 weeks is not the types of supplies that you have. The real difference is in the quantity of those supplies and the skills that your community will need to stay safe during 3 month scenarios. Again, the skills that you need will likely be from multiple community members. Some skills for 3 month scenarios could include medical care that goes beyond basic first aid. So, courses like Stop the Bleed, CPR, wilderness medic training, or other medical training can help you with this skill set. If this is a skill set you want to build, you can check for those classes in your area. You can also think about gardening, foraging, or hunting, skills that can help your community to have enough to eat. Thinking about mending or repairing, these skills can help your community by conserving important resources and can help begin the process of recovering from a disaster. This can include mending clothing or shoes or repairing damage to pipes, small appliances, or cars. You can also think about the skill of caregiving. Some community members are going to need extra help. Caregiving skills ensure that elderly, young, or disabled communities can stay safe and have support during long-term disruptions. You can also think about the skill set of moderation and emotional regulation. 3 month scenarios are stressful and will create a lot of high-intensity emotions. It is helpful to have community members who are good at soothing people, de-escalation, listening, and resolving conflicts calmly. Language and translation might be a skill that is relevant for your community. Many communities have people who speak different languages. Having bilingual people with translation skills is vital for communication. Remember that translation is a different skill than being simply bilingual, and if you are already bilingual, building those translator skills can be a valuable asset to your community in an emergency. Another skill set may be leadership and decision making. When you're working towards collective goals, you will need a few community members who can help guide the group in a way that feels fair, compassionate, and logical. If you think leadership is a strength that you can offer, you could look for opportunities to build credibility in your community as a leader. So, for example, being a scout troop leader, a coach, or a neighborhood watch organizer. Teamwork and community are keys to survival during long-term disruptions. Running into the woods, abandoning human speech, and living with the wolves is not practical because humans need each other. Long-term preparedness relies on that. Community preparedness also means that the members of your community are collectively aware that preparedness is important for individuals and households. Finally, I just want to say that some emergencies may exceed 3 months. However, preparing for longer than 3 months is not something that we explicitly cover in this workshop. There are a few reasons for this. First, we recommend for planning for those 3 days first, then 3 weeks, then last for those 3 month scenarios. Preparing for 3 months requires lifestyle shifts, inventory management, community building, and skill building. These are all time-intensive things to build towards, and the skills and community you grow in the process will be helpful if and when emergency timeframes exceed 3 months. For emergencies extending beyond 3 months, circumstances will change, and new and unexpected things will very likely happen. Emergencies that extend beyond 3 months will often involve outside resources from governments or aid organizations. In these situations, it's highly unlikely that you will be without help from beyond your community for longer than 3 months. All of that said, it is always possible that your specific circumstances, your specific natural hazards, require greater preparedness. If you think that might be you, build up to your 3-month preparedness first, and then reevaluate whether additional preparation is practical and appropriate. You can use the same planning templates from this workshop to plan for any time frame. Now I'd like to invite you to flip back over to your student workbook. And if you want to pause the video and fill out some of the skills and stuff needed for a 3-month backup plan, feel free to do so. So in this example, again, this is going back to that person's backup plan for light. We can see that in addition to planning for their personal preparedness needs, they're also thinking about what their neighbors need. So you can see that they are not only thinking about whether the adults and kids are comfortable with the skills required for the resources they have, but they're also thinking about checking in with elderly neighbors to be sure that they have enough supplies for their light and power. Another thing that you'll notice is that in the skill set, they have that they're adjusting to using daylight as much as possible. So those are the types of things that you want to be thinking about for your 3-month planning, is making sure that your whole community has the skills and stuff required, and also trying to think about ways that you can adjust your lifestyle to accommodate these longer disruptions. The last thing we're going to talk about today in this lecture portion is improving your preparedness before and after emergencies. You can improve your resilience before and after emergencies. If your community went through the same emergency together, you may want to discuss these questions with other people in the community in order to learn from each other. After an emergency, you can reflect on the successes and areas for improvement for your resilience. Ask these 3 questions. Question 1, what went well? Question 2, what could be improved? Question 3, how can I address those areas for improvement? Before emergencies, you can improve your preparedness through practice and training. When seeking out training opportunities, consider the skills of people in your community or household, and consider the needs of people in your community or household. For example, if you know someone in your community has severe allergic reactions, you may want to learn more about how to deal with anaphylaxis or how to correctly use an EpiPen. You can also consider threats and hazards for your geographic area. For example, if you live in a place where wildfire is common, fire safety or fire science classes might be a good idea. That's not to say that you would be fighting fires, but it would give you a better understanding of the natural hazards in your area, and that could be an asset to your community members. With regards to practice, there's many ways to test your supplies and systems for emergency preparedness. Things like home fire drills, camping trips, or even flipping off your fuse box to simulate a blackout, or having no screen days with your family can be useful tools for practicing your emergency preparedness plans. After you practice, ask those same reflection questions we used before to improve your preparedness. For our final activity, I would invite you to flip back to our student workbook and find the tab marked To-Dos. So you're going to fill out 3 items on that to-do list, so just 3 lines. Come up with 1 to-do for each time frame of preparedness. Thank you all again for being here with us today. And again, a huge thank you to the AR community for all your support and help. If you want to contact me or reach out to request the full virtual workshop, you can fill out the form in the description box, or you can reach out to American Resilience through their website and the folks at AR will send it my way. I hope this was helpful to all the viewers, and best of luck on your preparedness journey.
Folks, thanks for spending some time learning with us today. And Elle, once again, a super big thanks to you. Elle's work here is an amazing example of the generosity of spirit that makes the AR community so special. Here, we connect professional level skills across disciplines based on our love of the earth and our commitment to bringing the best future we can into being. I want to thank all of you in the AR community. It is our contributions together that have grown the community to this point where we're pulling really serious tools together to help us respond to change on the individual, household, and community level. So many thanks to our donors, our volunteers, to everyone spreading the word online, and just critically, to everyone doing the work on the ground. AR is a donor supported nonprofit. If you'd like to donate, please visit our website, www.americanresiliency.org, or you can find a donation button on the About page of our YouTube channel. AR is here thanks to the generosity of viewers like you.